A lot of us know at least a few Catholic priests, but less of us know a few Catholic nuns. However, that is exactly who my guest is today, Sister Teresa Paul of the Sisters of the Third Order of St. Francis. Sister, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I really appreciate you making the drive and making the time.
Thank you, Paul, for having me here.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. So how about we just go ahead and start off with a massive question. How did you wind up joining the Sisters of the Third Order of St. Francis? How did you come to decide to become a nun in the first place?
From birth, no.
Yeah.
That's too long. I've been in life, basically. I work, I finish school, work, and I actually get laid off. And then, so I was kind of confused for maybe like about a couple years through the discernment and things, what to do next. My background is actually in design, specifically in garment and fashion design. Mm-hmm. So after thinking about it for a while, I decided not to go back to the industry. So I decided to be more active in the church, and then also went to pilgrimage to Holy Land. In Holy Land, I met a sister, and looking back, I was thinking, I've asked sisters and priests about their vocation. Like, how do you know exactly God is calling you to your vocation? And most of them said, I always know since I was little. So this particular sister that I saw in Holy Land, she said the same thing. I always know I want to be a sister since I was little. And I think I almost bid St. Teresa of Lisieux, I want to come in to join her congregation since she was like 11 or something like that. So I said, oh, yeah. Like in the back of my mind, I thought, there's nothing to do with you. It's not your calling, you know. I never really thought about being a religious. So I just listened to her. But then she said, I just love Jesus. And it just makes me think about my love to Jesus. And I was like, oh, I love Jesus too, but I don't have the one that she shows me. And I just felt short, you know. So when I came back from Holy Land, I decided to start looking around, you know, like try to look into religious life and send emails to religious communities if they happen to have a website and emails. And then, but it didn't go anywhere. And finally, I was going to attend a discernment retreat. And then it didn't go anywhere either because there's a lot of people that goes into discernment retreat knowing exactly what they want, and they're a little bit further in the discernment.
And you said discernment retreat, which is a retreat specifically made for people who are discerning joining the religious life.
Religious life or priests, yes.
Priesthood, the nunhood. I'm not sure if that's what it's called.
We call it religious lives. Actually, there's a difference between nuns and sisters. Nuns is actually the ones that live in a cloister. So they live in a monastery and they live a cloister life. So you will rarely see nuns. Mm-hmm. And the religious women that is outside doing, you know, teaching or preaching or retreat work and things like that, usually they're sisters.
Sisters are more social in the world, doing things with
active,
people.
Yeah, active work, yeah.
Cloistered nuns, however,
yes,
as the name implies, are cloistered.
Yes.
Away from the outside world.
Exactly. And they usually do their main apostolate, prayer. So they pray a lot. The works that they did usually on the side. So like some of them makes altar bread, some of them sell cookies, or some of them like make vestment for priests and for mass and things like that.
Okay, that's how they kind of pay the bills and
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, now this was the most summarized, zoomed out view of the last few years of your life. Perhaps we should start even earlier. And I did a little research on you, and I know that you were born in Indonesia,
Yes.
which is the #1 most populated Muslim country in the world. The most Muslims that live in any country, how am I trying to say this? The highest population of Muslims live in Indonesia. Predominantly Muslim place, Islamic country. Just last week I had one of the most famous online Islamic apologists, or whatever you want to call them, on the show, sitting right where you sat. So I have learned a lot about Islam. And Catholics and Islam don't exactly jive together very well. So when you grew up in Indonesia, was your family Islamic? Did you convert, or were they Catholics in a sea of Muslims?
Actually, my family converted from Buddhism.
From Buddhism, interestingly.
Yes. So in Indonesia, there's Islam, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian Catholics, and Christian Protestant. So my family was Buddhist, and I'm the first cradle Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah, in the
Do
family.
you know anything about why they decided to convert from Buddhism to Catholicism?
I don't really know exactly, but my mom and dad, I think, the one who really started in their family, because their brothers and sisters follow after, except one aunt. Actually, my dad's side on my aunt on my dad's side was just turned Catholic just before she died several years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so they got the whole family to do it eventually.
Yeah, and not we didn't really evangelize or anything, but I think they just felt like, because my dad was the second oldest, and then my mom is the second oldest also. So I guess they kind of felt like, well, why don't follow their older sister or brothers,
Yeah.
I don't know really exactly why.
Do you know much about the religion of Buddhism?
Not much to really tell you. A lot of our practice is more cultural Buddhism than religion part, because I'm also Chinese. So there's a lot of our practice of Buddhism is more cultural than the religion part.
I see. Okay, so the way your family lived was more by Buddhist principles, but the religion and the faith that they practiced wasn't exactly that Buddhist.
Yeah.
They weren't that religious.
Yeah.
I see.
They weren't religious in Buddhist part of it. But I was born cradle Catholic. I was baptized when I was 2 months, 3 months, yeah. So I didn't really know that part much of it.
Right. It's interesting because when I talk to people, let's see, when were you born? Early 70s then, was it? It seems like that generation, my dad included, they didn't ask their parents, what was your story? Tell me about your life. It was just, that just didn't really happen in that generation, it didn't seem.
I don't know. Didn't really ask. We never really talk about it either. I was just start thinking about it. No. No. I just remember, it's actually very interesting, especially maybe the Chinese culture part of it, because I remember my grandparents passed away. My grandfather on my mom's side passed away, and I was maybe 4. And I remember wearing the white mourning clothes, and the whole family is wearing that in the funeral. And then There's a lot of crying. It's part of the mourning. I kind of remember it almost like, the Jewish culture also, like there's that mourning women's that cry. I don't know if it's just also, of course we are sad because our my grandparents passed away. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned this. You're Chinese in this part of your family's culture. China. Have you ever been to China before?
No.
No? Okay,
No.
but your family still was Chinese, culturally at least, and ethnically, presumably.
Yeah.
What do you think about China and the Catholic Church? I mean, I gotta ask that. People are gonna be wondering your opinion. Because not too long ago, I believe Pope Francis allowed for China to have some say, the government of China, the CCP, to have a say in what bishops were allowed to practice the faith. Like they kind of had their say in picking the bishops. I don't know exactly how that worked, but do you know anything about that or have any opinion on China and the Catholic Church? If you've been living with an aching back, debilitating imbalances, or any physical discomfort and just want to get back to living a fit and happy life, look no further than InMotion Fitness Center and Outpatient Therapy at Fairview Haven in Fairbury, Illinois. Our highly skilled therapy team will guide you through proven and effective exercises to help you regain your strength, movement, and mobility, all with our renowned level of love and care. Live your best life. Call our therapy team at 815-692-6724 to find out how we can serve you today.
No, I don't know anything about that. I don't really follow those kind of things, actually, to be honest with you.
Sure.
It's kind of hard because it was, to me, being Catholics is just part of being universe. It's like to follow what the Pope was saying, right? Or the magisterium, the church. That's part of being Catholic, to be united. Of course, there's a lot of different ones, different rites, different ways we do things, Latin rites and, Byzantine rites. We're still Catholic, but, it's like there's a unified system there.
Sure. Yes, you all adhere to the head of the church in Rome, the Pope. Yes, that's what makes the whole church so special. There is a hierarchy, and there is a central point at which all roads lead to Rome. No matter the specifics of the way that you practice the faith, it's all relatively the same. It all focuses around the same things, and it all traces its lineage back to Rome, and it takes orders from Rome. And it's kind of a beautiful part of the structure of the faith, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't tell you much about that either.
Well,
but,
continue. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. But the back to your question about being growing up in a Muslim country, I felt like it was not really a lot of what do you call it, like arguments or anything bad happening between us and the Muslim around my time when I was growing up. So I didn't really have that kind of animosity with different religion. I have Muslim friends, I have Christian friends, Buddhists, Hindus. We just play together and hang out together. I did go to a Catholic school, and we did have Muslim friends and Muslim students in the school also. So it doesn't really bother me, and part of our being in the a lot of cultures going on in our country, not even just like being Chinese, but in Indonesia itself, there are so many different islands and cultures. So we have to compromise and, accept each other.
Learn how to get along,
yes,
despite the differences.
Exactly.
I see. So you mentioned that you studied fashion, and design.
Exactly.
And that is a field, whether you know this or not, I assume it's always been this way. That's a very liberal thing to get into. I went to Millikan University. There were some fashion students there, and they were as left as it gets. I mean, how did you persevere through that? How did you remain Catholic? Because to be Catholic incorporates being conservative.
Yeah.
Was your faith ever challenged when you went to school for fashion?
I wasn't actually, quote unquote, devout Catholic, I guess. I did practice. I never left the church to revere in any ways. But I think I was just doing the required, Sundays, Mass, confessions, and once in a while pray rosaries kind of thing. So at that time, I was just having fun. I didn't really evangelize. I didn't really see anything wrong with anything that we were doing. Of course, there's a lot of things that now I realize is not really acceptable. I have gay friends. I have done some of, go clubbings with my friends and things like that, which is not, I didn't think that it was a sin, it was just kind of, having fun with friends,
Sure.
So I didn't really do it like every weekend or things or anything like that. So I just felt like I was doing whatever is what I can enjoy around that time.
You were being a normal college kid.
Yeah.
I see.
And also around when I was working, there are those things that I did with my boss, like just hanging out, going to clubs and things. But even at that time when I was not really a devout Catholic, but of course I still go to, Ash Wednesday and get my ashes. And then they will say, what is that? Why is your forehead dirty? And I have to explain it. They will think that I was very prudent, like, oh, don't talk about these things with her, because she might think we're so bad or something like that. But I wasn't even really thinking that I was really devout and really love God the way I should be.
It was just kind of the thing you did. You practiced Catholicism. You went to Mass. You went to Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your life didn't necessarily focus on that.
Not yet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And you went to what? The University of Texas?
University of North Texas in Denton.
Got it. And then you moved. I thought this was interesting. You moved to Los Angeles. Talk about...
Where did you get all this?
It was a few articles I read. Hey, your stuff, you've been interviewed before. Your stuff's out there.
Okay.
You're a superstar.
Yeah, I was... I moved to... I was in Texas, and then, to get a good job in fashion, I was thinking, I'm going to have to move to... At first, actually, I was thinking about moving to New York. But then I decided, that's too much. So I moved to LA because my brother is in San Diego. So I was staying over at his place for a while, and then until I get a job in LA. And I was in LA. And, God works in his ways and his time. And around that time, actually, I met a really good friend of mine who was the president of the young adult in one of the parish that I went to. So I joined the young adult group in South Pasadena. And, I contributed her to be one of the person that kind of wrangled me in a little bit more towards the church.
So what time was this? Was this the 90s?
Yeah.
Okay, the 90s in California, that was a poppin' time. Technology was booming, getting close to that dot-com bubble. It was an exciting time to be in California,
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
actually, you know what, actually it's early 2000, because I remember going to the 2000 New Year's 2000 in Vegas with my brother.
Wow.
So, yeah, we did went there. So,
Okay. Got it. Early 2000s in Los Angeles.
yeah.
Were you working for a fashion design company or what were
I
you
was
doing?
working for a Halloween costume company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Using your fashion knowledge for making Halloween costumes.
Yes. And Halloween costumes. And, it's actually very interesting. The first time I met when I went into the interview, I was like, so what else do you guys really actually do? And they're like, the costumes. It's like, just for one day, just for one day. The whole year you work on the things for one day. I was pretty amazed how much business there is for that one day only.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of Halloween and being Catholic, this fires me up every single year. You know what one of the most popular costumes I see is, especially among these college women, is like the sexy nun or something like that. You notice that?
Yeah.
And priests and stuff?
Yeah.
What's that make you feel?
Well, I don't hate it per se. It's like it's not good. But at least there's a nun. Well, it's not portraying a good one, but maybe in some ways God will work something in their heart somehow. I don't know. He's the one that in charge. He can do anything he wants and use anything. I mean, even the worst thing, he can make it good. So I can't really change that, because I admitted that we did a lot of sexy stuff also when we were in doing a Halloween costume, when I was doing a Halloween costume.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's just the way people want it. There's a lot of people wants to buy it. So we just cater for the market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
Easy as that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, though. Part of me has secretly wanted to put on a priest priest vestments, I guess, for Halloween, but then not be a jerk and go out and actually talk about God. And be, part of being a priest looks really cool to me. And I've discerned the priesthood plenty, but to get to wear their vestments and then go out and actually talk about God, I always thought that'd be interesting and kind of fun and give me a taste of a little of what they do and also surprise people. But you're right, the whole mockery of those Halloween costumes, of being the sexy nun, this is supposed to be a holy profession. And here I am doing something funny with it.
Yeah.
But people, in seeing this person making a mockery of that, will think, okay, they're making a mockery of one of the most holy things you can do. Maybe that gets some gears turning, at least in part, and gets them thinking about, what is God real?
Yeah.
Maybe I should have stayed Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I see what you're saying. The Compound, located on 800 North Division Street in Chenoa, Illinois, is a wrestling training facility for youth and high school freestyle, folk style, and Greco-Roman wrestling. Here we are driven to teach wrestling technique to athletes who strive for the highest levels of success in this sport. Athletes from the Compound have earned gold at IKWF, IESA, and IHSA state tournaments, as well as national and international competitions, and have gone on to wrestle for Division I colleges. For gold standard wrestling education and development, come to the Compound Wrestling Training Center in Chenoa, Illinois. There can be a lot of good that could come from what looks like a really profane, bad thing.
It can be like turning somebody that was just kind of like thinking about us, like, hey, that's not good. Even turning the other way around, instead of just joining them.
Right.
Yeah. So, what I was thinking. Oh, actually, I was going to mention when I was taking my vacation one time, I went home on Halloween day, And then I went to this grocery store, and the cashier was like, "Oh, there's a nun here. Oh, we have to behave." And I'm like, "No, I'm just early wearing my Halloween costume." I said. And they're like, "Oh, really? Oh, your costume is really good." And I was like, "No, I'm real." So I just have to tease them.
It seems like you have a good sense of humor. I think sometimes people think that sisters and nuns, that they're super strict, no fun, no joking around, ultra serious people.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
Nah, well, maybe some of them. But, well, there's always race of people around, not just in the convent. Outside there's serious people. There's really jokers. It's like all over. Same thing in a convent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said convent.
Excuse me.
Oh, you're okay. You mentioned the convent. You can be a cloistered nun, and a nun is different than a sister. So you're a sister. You're not a nun, correct?
No, I'm not a nun.
Correct. Okay, got it. Perfect. But you're not cloistered, but you are a part of a convent? Is that correct?
Yeah, a convent is actually just what we call our home, basically, a convent.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
like a rectory or a monastery.
Exactly. But I live in the mother house. The mother house is usually where the superior live. Also, our novitiate is there, and formation for all the new sisters is there. And convents usually be like mission houses. So there's ones usually they have like our apostolates in healthcare, and we used to have convents in each of our medical centers and our hospitals. There are sisters that live there that do their service in the medical centers.
Okay.
In the hospital.
So before we get to that, you were making Halloween costumes, designing Halloween costumes. You were a part of a young adults group at the local parish. How did you wind up then deciding to join? And you were emailing these different religious orders. How did you make the jump then into, okay, I wanna dedicate my life to Christ and be a sister? What did that whole decision look like, and was it difficult?
No, I don't think it's really difficult. It's more. That's like around in 2000, and then when I was in LA, it was like in early 2000. But when I was discerning, it's maybe about 5 years later. So it's a little bit later than when I was working in LA. But my experience with my friend in LA was very the turning point, I think. I didn't really realize this, but my sister told me that, you changed after you went to that retreat. So I guess I'm more, I did a lot more service work in the church. I used to be the one that just goes to Mass every week, and then I become, I came to any ministry, like, bazaar or something, I help out. And with a young adult, they have things going on, I help out, So she saw that change in me. But years later, I finally came back to Texas, and I was staying with my sister for a while. And then one night, after checking out all the different religious communities, and after I emailed people that didn't really go anywhere, one night we were watching a St. Francis movie. So one of our friends from the Indonesian community actually joined the Third Order lay community for a Franciscan. So I was kind of like just wondering, I was like, what is that? So I Google it. I Googled the third order. What does it mean? But then the Sister of Third Order of St. Francis came up. So I emailed them and I asked them. Now, at that point, I already know some of the things that they required, you have to be single, practicing Catholic, no debt, those kind of things. So I listed it.
No what?
Debt. Like,
No debt?
No debt.
Financial debt?
Yes.
You have to be debt-free in order? Okay, that's
Yes.
interesting. Why is that?
Because you will not be able to earn money, so you cannot make any more payments, So you have to be debt-free.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's in a canonical, so you have to be debt-free when you come in. Whether or not you get help from your family or even you can do fundraising. There's a lot of those things these days. And there's different organization that will be able to help you also, like trying to do fundraising. And there's a lot of people that will help for young women and men that wants to be a religious or a priest.
I see.
Yeah. So I emailed them, saying that, besides being single women, debt-free, and practicing Catholic, what else is required, So I got an email back from the assistant of the formation director at that time. She said, well, the formation director is out of town right now. She will contact you as soon as she can. And then the next day, I get an email from the formation director and say, would you like to talk on the phone? And I was like, whoa. It was kind of fast, but I was like, okay. So I sent her my number. I emailed her my number. I was actually one digit wrong.
He gave her the wrong number?
Yeah, it was like one digit off. And I was like, oh my goodness, because I was like waiting. I was waiting and waiting. I was like, why is she not calling? So I checked the email back and I'm like, oh no. So I sent her an email back and then she called me. I'm like, I'm so sorry, sister. I was like, that's a bad first impression. So independable. So yeah, she was like talking to me and then asking me some questions, so how long have you been discerning and things? And I said, I just started. I don't know anything. I went to Catholic school, but I never really thought about being a nun. I never really thought about religious life, so I just started. What am I supposed to do,
Well, why did you want to do this anyway?
I don't know. I was just...
It's a big decision.
To be honest with you, I don't know. Exactly. That's why I was just kind of like, I'm just going to look into it. Now,
were you just in love with Christ and you need an outlet for that?
I guess. And I was like and then I was laid off and I thought maybe this is something that I was just making up. I made it up, I don't know. And I was just kind of like, okay, God, let me just look into it. And there's no promises. I'm just going to look into it because this is the one thing that I haven't done. I didn't know anything about. And it just felt like I need to check it out. So I did. And I went and visited the community and I was like, well, seems like I can do it,
A clean car says so much about you. That's why you need to head to All American Wash in Fairbury. From our massive bays, superior lighting, and undercarriage washing capabilities to our high-powered jets, protective tri-gloss foam, and strong vacuums, you can be sure your ride will glisten like never before. Here at All American Wash, ease of use is a top priority. Our carefully designed app lets you scan your phone for instant access into our automatic bay while receiving discounted rates and free birthday washes. Our layout lets you get right back on the road without any uncomfortable turns. And we know Americans work long, hard hours, which is why we're open 24/7 for your washing convenience. We have staff on site every weekday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. to help with anything you may need. And we even offer purified drinking water for only 25 cents a gallon. Experience the highest quality wash in Livingston County at an affordable price when you visit All American Wash in Fairbury.
It was because before I was thinking maybe I'm not good enough. I didn't read the Bible enough. I didn't pray enough. I'm just not enough of a person to be a nun. So, yeah, it just didn't feel like I'm supposed to be one.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
When I look at the life of a sister, it doesn't, no offense, it doesn't look that fun. First of all, you can't get married. You can't have kids. You work all the time. You can't make money. You wear the same clothes every day. You don't really go out and, have some drinks with friends unless you do. I don't know. I know priests that do that. What was attractive about it?
Jesus.
Jesus, wow. Hey, that's profound.
Yeah, it was like when I was visiting, actually, I went to the St. Francis Medical Center Chapel. Have you ever been to St. Francis?
I've spent so much time at St. Francis. My mom had a brain hemorrhage, series of strokes too, and she had to get a surgery at carotid. No, what was it? She basically had to get half her skull cut off and then some stuff done to her brain. She was in there for a while, so me and my family were in there for months. And actually, my girlfriend...
Did you made it to the chapel?
I was in the chapel, the Shrine of St. Francis, Shrine of St. Anthony. I don't know why they had St. Anthony, but anyway.
It's St. Francis Medical Center.
Yeah, right. But I spent a lot of time in there, and actually my girlfriend now is a nurse there. So that place has a special connection with me, and I've talked to some sisters there while spending time at the chapel and going to Mass, because a lot of the time there's a few sisters there. So
when was this?
This was in 2020, the summer of 2020, or maybe 2019.
Okay.
But anyway, yes.
I wasn't there anymore then. I moved to the mother house, but so you went to the big chapel, right, on the second floor? Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you see how big it is? It's like all these like really nice, curve.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you stumble upon that chapel. You're like, whoa, how's this hidden in here?
Yeah, it was actually the mother. We used to have the mother house there, so that's the mother house chapel. So that's why it's the big chapel is for all the sisters to come. We used to have a really quite a lot of sisters, so the big chapel accommodate for all that. But so the story was like I came and visited, and I was praying, and I was looking up at the crucifix up there, and I was like, "Oh, do you really want me to join a religious community?" And I was like, "Oh God, I will miss my jeans."
What, you mean pants?
Yes. And I was like looking at him, and I'm like, "Okay, never mind."
like that was a silly thing to say?
Exactly. I was like,
miss my jeans.
He died for you, and you're just like, "I will miss my jeans." It's not comparison, but it just came out. So I was like, okay, never mind. It came, like I said, I don't know anything about religious life, and I never thought about being a religious. So it's not like everybody else that I've been asking that said, I always know since I was little, I always know. I know when I was in third grade. I know when I was like second grade. Those kind of things. I never had it in my head.
And it didn't bother you, the fact that this is a lifelong commitment, right? It seems scary to the outside world. Everyone says, I could not do it. I want a family.
I know.
I love love. I want to have a relationship with my husband.
Yeah, I mean, until I entered 2012, until 2000, I think it was 2010, I was dating somebody. You know, it was like I didn't think about it ever. So I was dating somebody and enjoying life, and then we broke up, and then we were going to the Holy Land, but then we broke up, so he didn't come with me to Holy Land. I went by myself.
Was he Catholic as well?
Yeah. So I went by myself and talked to that sisters. You know, like I said, God is using all the things that are happening in your life, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and it's just, I just didn't have that problem to give up all that. You know, it's just kind of like, it's worth it. It's worth it for all the things that you will miss, all the things that you won't do. It's just worth it. Like right now, I can always say I always miss my family. You know, I'm close to my sister, and she's in Texas, and I have my niece just moved to Texas with her family. With my, I have two great nieces, and her husband also, and my nephew is in Texas also, in Dallas area. And a lot of family was there. And every single time I'm like thinking, I miss all the things that they were doing. You know, it's just kind of like hanging out with friends and family, food, good food, Indonesian food, you know. Like yesterday, it was actually my one of my great nieces' birthday. So actually, it was kind of special because it's my feast day also. It was Mother Teresa's name day, and so we share a special connection. She was born on the 5th, and my niece just texted me the birthday picture of all the family and all the food. And I was like always kind of like, oh, I miss that. But then it was like, it's not mine to have anymore, so it's okay because I will be here in my place the way God wants me to do, to pray for them, you know. So it's okay. It feels fine, you know. It's hurt a little bit, but it's worth it. That's what I say.
Why is it worth it?
Because His love, you know. You can't really describe it. Oh, well, I guess you can kind of feel it with, you know, like you fall in love with somebody and you just kind of like, anything you want to do. You want to hang out with her all the time, right?
Sure.
I feel like you want to be with her all the time. You want to share everything with her. Same feeling, you know.
Would you say you've fallen in love with Christ?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you pray and when you feel especially connected to Him, is it enjoyable? Is it joyful?
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm perfectly like always there, you know, even like the saints never say like He's always there. I felt Him always here.
Mother Teresa. I mean, oh my gosh. Years and years of darkness. Like, God.
Yeah.
You gave me this vision on this train a long time ago, and now I committed my whole life to you. I've made a lot of hospitals. We've helped a lot of people, saved a lot of people, converted a lot of people to you. Now you're so silent that I don't even know if you were real to begin with. That was Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa.
Yes.
That's incredible.
The darkness of souls. And I'm not there yet. If I am ever there, I think that's even the best place to be because God is really trusts your soul, trusts you enough. He trusts you that He doesn't have to be near you. He knows you love Him anyway. He knows how good you are. That should be taken as a compliment.
Yeah, I guess in some twisted way.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he knows he won't give you more than you can handle, I guess. And he refines you. He gets rid of all the bad stuff. He puts you to the test and makes you stronger. And when you're Mother Teresa, you can handle a lot and he'll continue to persevere. So he gives you all you can handle, which is kind of not appreciated. You know?
Well, I think she knows why, and I think she knows, what she went through is for the good of her soul also. It's not something that I think people like her, it's just saintly. You know them already there, and we know. How come God doesn't know? He knows better, right? We know. We can see holiness in people, right? It's just kind of like, whoa, he looks like he's going to look into my soul. You're kind of like, don't look at me. You can't you can't stare them. But this is the kind of God knows and God trusts them. So, yeah.
That's interesting what you said about when unholy people look into the eyes of someone or something holy, and they're like, "Wait," and
kind of like
it's because it's a bright light that casts light on their insecurities or their impurities.
Yeah.
No one who's in a horrible life of sin likes to be around someone who's super holy unless they're focused on getting better.
Yeah.
But if they're not focused on getting better, all it does is cast a light and shows. It's like a mirror.
Yeah.
Shows them what they are, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that."
Yeah, but sometimes I don't know. There are times that I still feel kind of like uncomfortable seeing like a priest that I know that is just kind of like there's something about him that just wow me. Maybe I'm kind of like shy or something about it, but I don't know. It's just, I can't describe it. But there's that thing that you kind of like, you want to be near the person that's holy just to get like, kind of like a holiness from him, kind of like osmosis, kind of like, but it doesn't work like that. But you kind of enjoy the time, but then you don't really want to be kind of like, hogging him for all that, it's not productive for yourself or him. So you have to work on your own holiness, So I mean, I have priest friends and things, but you can kind of feel that from different priests, different I want to say vibes, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Everyone kind of gives off some kind of, oh gosh, talk about sounding woo-woo. You don't want to say you give off some vibes or energy or anything like that. Fairbury Furniture is Central Illinois' premier furniture store. This family-owned business offers a vast selection of premium furniture items from all of your favorite brands, including Sealy, Best Home Furnishings, Leather Italia, Tempur-Pedic, and Ashley, just to name a few. And right next door to their gorgeous 7,000 square foot furniture showroom, you will find the Fairbury Furniture Mattress Store, home to all of the latest and greatest mattresses in any and all sizes. Also inside Fairbury Furniture is the popular WC Market, a beloved shop that offers an ever-changing selection of unique gifts and fashionable home decor. Here at Fairbury Furniture, the staff is always helpful and friendly, and they are well stocked with all the mattresses, tables, chairs, recliners, couches, and decorative pillows that your heart desires. So make your home interior beautiful, comfortable, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture.
Come on down to Fairbury Furniture, where the furniture rocks.
Right, but I mean, I don't know how else to put it. If you're around someone who's very holy, you can feel that.
Yeah.
It's an aura, it's something.
Yeah.
But you know when you're around it. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you some questions, just straight up questions.
Sure.
Let's cut to the chase here. You work at OSF. Mm-hmm. You're a sister of the Third Order of St. Franciscans. Order of St. Francis, I mean, did they make this hospital? Did a group of sisters create OSF as we know it? The biggest hospital chain in America? Or one of them?
Okay. So first of all, I don't work in OSF anymore. I used to work in the ministry, mission integration, mission services, basically kind of cater to the mission partners. But now I am the vocation director of the Sister of the Order of St. Francis. So I'm kind of out of the healthcare. And then, so the beginning of it is actually our sisters came from Germany, and they went, they leave Germany because of persecution there. And they actually...
Was this during World War II, like Hitler and stuff?
No, it's in 1880. 1880 something.
Oh, okay.
80s, I think. So it was long time ago. So they came to... they landed in New York, and then some of the sisters also moved to Iowa. So they moved to Iowa, and then their plan is to take care of the orphanage, because they used to have an orphanage in Germany. And then because of the condition, they just lived very poorly. They went out to do begging trips. Now there's about 4 sisters, I think, went down to Peoria area because they know there's a German priest that work here. So they finally arrived here, and then the German priest was asking the sisters to help in the hospital that he was, ministering to. It was actually public hospital. And then, so the sisters just, they're not in the healthcare, so they just help with, cleaning and everything, just help what they can do. The priest was so impressed, and he asked if they can stay and run the hospital. So finally, the sisters that came here asked their mother superior in Iowa if they can stay. And then they were granted, and then some more sister was sent down. I think there's like 3 more. And then Peoria around that time is still not a diocese. Around the same time, the first bishop was appointed, Bishop John Lancaster Spalding.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was appointed to be the first bishop. And then he agreed with the priest that they need these sisters to stay. So he basically become our co-founder with our foundress. They decided that we become a community by ourselves. So the Sisters of the Order become a community itself. And we start in that South Adams Street, a small, basically, it's like basically a house. It became a hospital, and then we got the property in the Glen Oak right now. Like started small, and then it's just become bigger and bigger.
And it was called the Hospital of the Order of the Sisters of the Order of St. Francis. Francis?
No.
Jeez.
The OSF healthcare system that was later on.
Okay.
But it started with the St. Francis Hospital. It's St. Francis Hospital, that's the name. And then it becomes St. Francis Medical Center. And we actually have maybe, we went to places where we are asked to go. So we went there to, we started this St. Francis Medical Center because the bishop was asking us to stay. And then there's more hospitals, more area asking for the sisters to open a hospital. So we came, and then We open a hospital and help people. Most of the time it starts basically with a little clinic, and then it becomes hospital afterwards. And when I came in 2012, I think we're up to 9 hospital around that time. And then one by one, the smaller hospitals in the area, around this area, asking the OSF healthcare if they can join the healthcare system. Because in a healthcare business, basically, when you are a small hospital, you can't survive. You need a system to belong to, because, of course, cost is really high, And then doctors, you have to share doctors, basically. All these doctors, it goes everywhere. They can't just stay put in one hospital and not going anywhere, you know. So they serve big area in the healthcare system, basically.
Okay. So OSF, like these little states, this mom and pop hospital, and they're in Bloomington, but there's a big OSF hospital in Peoria, and they're like, hey, a lot of insurance places don't necessarily want to work with us because we're so small. Can we just jump aboard with you guys, and you guys can kind of run us, and then that way we're just another location for OSF, and more insurance can come to us, more people can be sent to us, more doctors can run through here. Is that kind of how it works?
You can say it like that in like an easy, practical way, but there's, of course, a lot of things involved with it, because especially the ones that was asking to join us is usually going down, meaning like they don't have money. Financially, it's going down. And so the sister will look into it, and most of the time, we don't we get the hospital with all their debts. It's like
and you have to pay them off.
Yeah,
that's why you couldn't join the sisters until you had your debt paid off. It's not the same way, I guess, with small hospitals with debt.
No, we are the one that end up with their debts.
Right, yeah, and you have to pay them off, right?
Yeah, you can say that. But so the system absorb it, basically. And we try to help because, part of it being Catholic identity in healthcare, it's really hard to be in a healthcare ministry around these days. With politics and all the government rules and things, but we still try because it's human life, it's human life. It's what God gives us. It's His highest creation, how can we not, and when we look into a hospital, it's usually we'll see the area. Do they need healthcare there, of course. And then sometimes, like, for example, the one in, I think it was in Danville anyway, it was like, it's really far from that place for the people in that area to go to the next closest hospital. So that's part of the decision that sister said, okay, let's keep it open, help them to be open still. Mm-hmm. So, we have to think about it's a lot of things that you have to
It's a complex
consider.
Operation.
Yeah.
It sounds overwhelming, really.
Yeah.
But you mentioned at the core of this hospital is Catholicism and the principles and values laid out there within. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the sanctity of human life. It's the most important thing that God's ever created, human life.
Yes.
That said, a lot of people don't like OSF because they won't do abortions, and they're very pro-life, at least at the core level, in what the church or what the hospital is about. Some of their doctors might have different opinions, yada, yada, yada. Will OSF ever allow abortions to be done in their facilities?
So we are, the OSF hospital, OSF healthcare system is owned and run by the Sisters of the Order of St. Francis. We are a faithful community that follow the church teaching and the magisterium. So as long as the OSF, the Sisters of the Order of St. Francis is running the OSF healthcare, we're not going to do abortion in our facilities. So, yeah.
Would you consider that even a silly question?
Kind of has to be asked. Maybe people will think that why not? Always people ask why not. It's because it's not that we against. You can't really say that. You have to see it. We are pro-life. We are pro-life, not just about the baby. It's also about the mom. It's also about the dad. It's like abortion affect all that. You think that it's just taking out the baby from the mom and that's it. No, the effect of it will run through. There's a lot of moms that has been through the abortion that always have some, regret or some, at least a thought. It's just kind of like something that they did around that time.
Right.
They might not want to say that they are, but, and surprisingly, dads also affected by it. So, I don't know. I can't imagine it.
I've spoken to women who have had abortions, and they regret it a lot. There's women that don't regret it, sure, but it seems only logical to me that after you have an abortion, especially if you don't have any other kids, which is usually when abortions happen, it's like the first one, they're not ready for it or something or whatever. And then when you see kids running around, cute kids running around, it's like, well, that immediately is going to make you think of the child that you could have had that you aborted, that you ended the life of. And gosh, that would be so hard. That'd be so hard. Yeah. And I hope to talk to one of those mothers on the show one day just to see if they're so brave to talk about that, what it felt like, what it feels like to know that your child is not going to ever experience life on earth as you have because of what you ordered to be done. It's a rough thing. Yeah. Abortions, I think, and maybe you tell me what you think, but I think it's the most moral evil in the world today. Yeah. Killing the most innocent among us that can't defend themselves or anything, and their children. Gosh.
Exactly. It's yeah. And I actually had a friend that had an abortion, and this is when I was in San Diego. And this is a long time ago. I didn't even know that she had an abortion, but then she was like talking to me about it. Suddenly she said, I had a dream about a little girl. She had two boys afterwards. She said, I had a dream about a little girl. And I was like, oh yeah? I said, I didn't even know that she was talking about this abortion that she had. And then she was like, yeah, I had a baby and I aborted. And I was like, whoa. It's like suddenly just tell me. Like she wasn't regretting it per se in that conversation. But I still think about her, and once in a while I kind of say a prayer for her. It just felt kind of like there's something there. Why is she telling me about the dream, And she knows that I was Catholic because I was visiting her in her city. There's a mission, and I said, "Oh, I want to go to that mission," And so, yeah, she knows I was Catholic, and I think she was Catholic too. At least she was, but yeah. Even when you don't admit it, there's something in there in your heart that it's aching about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Something deep down.
Deep hurt, yeah.
Beyond the brain, beyond your psychology, down beyond the heart, into the soul, perhaps, that still kind of knows.
Yeah.
That was your child, and you ended its life for one reason or another. As we get towards the end of this conversation, I just have a couple questions, just kind of not fun necessarily, but just what I think are interesting. And I really want to get your thoughts on them. What do you think? Some Catholics push for this, and some priests believe it will happen. Priests marrying. What do you think of that? Being able to marry, or are they called to be celibate for their entire lives? And is that the right way to do it? And the same with sisters and nuns.
I think there's a reason why celibacy is the call in religious life and priesthood. Jesus himself never married, and keeps saying that when you're married, your responsibility is not going to be everybody. I can't say it the right way. It's like, for example, when you're married and then you're a priest, and like our chaplain usually get called at night to go to the hospital, there's an emergency or something. And then what if your wife said, "No, I don't want you to go"? Or your wife is late in her pregnancy and say, "No, I don't want you to go. Maybe I'm going to give birth very soon. And you'll be in somewhere, I don't know where, and how am I supposed to contact you?" or something like that. Now, how are you going to choose? I think that's like very logical reason not to get married for if you're a priest.
Right.
Because you'll be like, "Oh, my wife or my duty as a priest," It's just, I think it's an easy thought about it, What is it that one, because being married, what is it that you actually want from being from a married status of a priest? Having children, or the sexual part of it? It's like, what is it? Because for me, having children it's my call, being a religious, that I didn't. Yes, I used to want to have a children. Who doesn't want to have a mini me exactly like me? It's like I did, but now I don't, because I know that God calls me to this life, and He's giving me the desire to be a celibate and push forward on to that kind of life, instead of being a mom. Like, that's a different call, I always said. But even the religious that still wants to have children, they do have so many children out there. We call them our spiritual children, right? There's a lot of sisters that was such a good teachers. They're teaching so many kids, and they're still having those children in their life. So I think the satisfaction is still there. And the sexual part is, it's a natural thing. But when you're called to this life, like I said, the desire, yes, there's the desire, but the desire of being, to push forward in your life, being holier and pursuing something that's for the good of a greater scope of humanity, is there even more. So, like you said, it was like don't you miss going out with your friends? Yeah, but I don't. The desire is not as big as I used to have. Like, it's okay. I'd rather go to my evening prayer, something like that. Or if I have to go somewhere, and I was like, oh no, I will miss an adoration. I still kind of like have that thought in the back of my mind. Oh, I have to make it up somehow. Like. Put my prayer time somewhere else.
The pain of missing going out with your friends and doing this and that is nothing compared to the joy and the pleasure you feel in prayer and adoration then.
Yes.
You enjoy that more than you miss that.
Yeah.
I see.
The consolation, the things that you can't even describe. I always say that adoration is almost kind of like you're soaking in the sun of grace of God. It's just kind of like soaking in.
It sounds like you like prayer and adoration. Do you like it? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's like I just felt like so peaceful, Sometimes, of course, I never really felt like it was perfect one. Like I always just kind of like adore him or something like that. No, of course, there's time that I was like, oh, I think about something else or read something. But at least I'm in front of him, It's like, what else? Where else I want to be beside in front of him? And
Right.
it's just kind of like, there's no other place.
You know what I think the key component of it all is? And yes, it's just you're not necessarily adoring him as the name implies sometimes. Sometimes you're just in his presence, and that's easy to understand all the time. You just think of your relationships. If you're in love with someone, you just, even if you're not talking to them, you just like to be in their presence.
Exactly.
How many more times powerful is being in God's presence and being in some person you love's presence? Because that person's just a person. They'll mess up. They'll make you mad. God's not like that. Much more powerful. The love for him is much greater. But, oh darn, what was I going to say?
But I was going to say also, of course, you want to keep that in mind. It's like it's something that you have to nurture. It's like it's all relationship. When I first came, and I went to a vocation trip or something with Sister when she was the vocation director. We came into the house, and I was just like, okay, put our stuff down, and I was like, and I was thinking about sitting down in the couch, like we take a rest a little bit. And she was like running to the chapel. Okay, time for prayer. And I was like, what? You don't even, okay. So I was just like, okay, following her. But now I myself, like I caught myself doing that, it's like not like intentionally, oh, I gotta go. It just felt like, yeah, I gotta go. I need him. I need to see him right now. It's like I pick up somebody from the airport or something. In the car, I already say, by the time we reach the mother house, it will be prayer time. Probably about 5 minutes. If you want to join me, we're gonna run right away to the chapel. I said, I already warned the person that comes in. Oh yeah, or if you want to stay in your room for a little bit, they usually come and visit us as like, discerning their religious life. So it's like, I don't want to force them to go to chapel with me like right away, being traveling for hours in the airplane. But some of them's like, oh yeah, I'll just drop my stuff and yeah.
Yeah, I forget if it was, this is what I was trying to say that I forgot. It was either St. Augustine or St. Francis, which would be nice, that said, Lord, I'm restless until I rest in you.
St. Augustine.
Yeah. Augustine. Dang it, I was hoping it was Francis. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. We're made for God.
Yeah.
It only makes sense that when we're in the presence of God in the Eucharist and adoration or just in the church,
yes,
that we feel this peace. And it goes beyond science. It goes beyond psychology. It is something spiritual. This peace of the Holy Spirit, perhaps, comes when we are in close proximity to the literal body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ.
Yes.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's something that won't make sense to people that aren't Catholic, or perhaps not even to Catholics, but mainly to devout Catholics. I know people that are Protestants, believe it or not, that go to the Catholic Church just to sit in the church because for some reason they feel peaceful. And I feel like you could understand that.
Yes, he's there.
He's there.
He's there, yeah. And I always say, it was like, even when I was working in St. Francis, I told the mission partners that, take sometimes some breaks or something, go into the chapel and just sit, He's there. Jesus is there. Whether you believe it or not, he's there. So, sit. Just sit and enjoy. You will feel the peace.
Do you know Shia LaBeouf? Have you
Yeah.
heard anything about him? Yeah, joining the Catholic faith, right? Big time A-list movie star.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was God can use anything that he wants. If he wants to do it, he will make it happen. So it's easy for me to say it. I'm still learning to really believe in what does that mean, like really surrender and his plan, his time.
Yes.
Patient.
If you're anything like me, I mean, I feel like a fool all the time because when times in my life, and I'm 24, so there hasn't been that many rough times in my life, but even during those small rough times, I'm like, come on, where are you? Like, are you even here? Like, am I just making a fool of myself? I've had that more times than I care to admit. And then, sure enough, God pulls through almost. I'm just like, all right, fine. I don't even know how you're going to do anything. I don't know if you're there, but all I'm going to do is trust you. And every time God eventually pulls through and I feel like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I demanded you to do anything. I got mad at you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And now at this point in my life, I'm like, just when things looks like they're bleak and there's no end in sight and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, just trust God. Don't question it. It feels like you're an idiot sometimes, but at the same time, it brings you peace because God wants you to trust him even when it doesn't seem like you should trust him because he's not one of your buddies that you shouldn't trust when it feels like you shouldn't trust him.
Yeah.
You can put all your trust in God.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to make sense, but somehow he'll pull through for you. It's like quit trying to figure things out. Quit trying to be so prideful. That's the lesson I've learned.
Yeah.
Quit thinking that you can make it happen.
Yeah, but it's just it's our human part of us, wanting to be able to do things like right away now. When I was discerning, I remember it's like, okay, God, just let me know what I need to do, those kind of things. Like always questioning what it is. I don't know exactly what it is. One time I told a priest in confession, I was like, I'm mad at him because I think he's ignoring me, I said. And he started chuckling, and I was like, what? And he said, if he ignores you, you will fail to exist. And I'm like, oh, okay. He is thinking about us all the time. And he's God. He can do it, right? So he's never not with us. He's always in us. And so we just have to ask him to make us understand it even more and make us believe it even more and make us surrender to his plans. It's not easy for us to do it, but if we ask him, he will help us.
I mentioned Shia LaBeouf for two reasons. One was he lived with these monks that lived in a monastery, and I assume there's two different kinds of monks. Just like there's sisters and nuns, there's monks that live in the monastery and they do things like make beer and then they just pray all the time. And then there's also the monks that go out and evangelize and they're on YouTube and they're doing those things. He was with the kind that stay and make the beer, and they do those things. They live in the monastery. And he said he was with one, and they don't care that he's a movie star at all. They could not care less. And he had some questions about God, and he was all frustrated, all out of sorts. And the monk told him, just shut up and go sit in the chapel in front of God, and just shut up. and just don't say anything. Just be silent in front of God. And he said that changed his life. He said God spoke to him then more than ever in his life, and so much so that it was just a few more days until he became Catholic and did all the things that he needed to do. And he's very knowledgeable. And I listened to this whole conversation between him and Bishop Barron. And the second reason I brought that up was he said that the biggest component of his conversion was actually the Latin Mass, the extraordinary form of the Mass. He said because it was Latin, because there's such reverence in that Mass, and because it was Latin and he couldn't understand it, he was sucked out of the intellectual side of being at Mass and placed purely in the spiritual. And I thought that was beautiful because he couldn't understand and think his way through what was being said. And because there was no certain things that there are in the Novus Ordo English style of the Mass, he was forced to just embrace all the senses. And he said it was beautiful. And so I want to ask you, what do you think about the Latin Mass, specifically in the Diocese of Peoria? It's not exactly welcomed. A lot more places than not are being told no Latin Mass.
Yeah.
I know my parish in Fairbury has been granted the ability to still say Latin Mass. But what do you think about that? And tradition in general, are we taking away something that was beautiful that's been here for a long time and that might be problematic? Or do you think it's overall a good move?
I think when the first time when the church was changing it from Latin to Novus Ordo, it's because they want to reach out more, right? To get the people to get involved. Because honestly, I haven't been to a Latin Mass for a long time now. There's used to be one chaplain that did a Latin Mass, and I'm not into it because I wasn't into it because I cannot understand it, and the structure of the Mass itself is different. Maybe it's the High Mass, Latin. To be honest with you, I don't really know the differences. There's some Mass in Latin, but it's still the same structure as the regular Mass. And there's one that's like Latin and like the old Mass. So I think he was doing the one that like the old Mass because I can't follow at all. I remember when I was little, my dad took us to Europe traveling, and we went to Masses each Sunday. And I remember being in a church in Germany and France or some foreign country that I can't speak the language. But I am so happy knowing where I am at Mass. And I was little. I was 9. I was like, I know exactly what they're saying.
Because it was... Wait. Was it Latin, you said? Or it was not Latin?
No, it's in their language. But because
I see.
It's Novus Ordo, it's like I understand the Mass.
You know,
exactly.
They're saying the Our Father at this part.
Yeah.
They're saying the...
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I came into this community and that one priest was doing the Latin Mass, I don't know where he is, and I get so confused. And I was trying really hard to follow and try to embrace this, but it's not often enough that I was able to really embrace it. That's one I recognize where I am at Mass, okay? And then the second one about being not understanding the language and get sucked into the essence of it, not intellectual. I think it will go both ways, because I remember when I came here in the U.S. for 2 years, I went to Mass in English, right? I understand English. I can follow Mass perfectly. And then I went to an Indonesian Catholic community Mass in Indonesian. Come to the Our Father, I was bawling. You know? Because why? Because it hits me even more because it's in my own language. It's just like from the ear to head, just goes down to my heart. I was like, why am I crying? It's only Our Father. But it's different because you hear something so familiar and so touching to your heart. So I don't know.
You experienced it both intellectually and spiritually.
Yes.
The words and the spirit.
Exactly. So I can't say by being there not knowing something it's helpful. Maybe for some people that's what it takes because maybe he analyzed everything. You know, he never goes beyond that, you know.
Right.
So some people need that.
I think, you know what? I hear you, and you make great points. You really do, and Latin is a dead language. It wouldn't make sense for everyone to learn Latin and then we go back to Latin. The conservative side of me is like, oh, we can't be changing the church. You know, if you change the church too much, it becomes liberal because it's changing. And then you don't want to do that because when you become liberal, you start to associate with the liberals. And within that is a whole lot of concepts that are anti-Catholic, I guess. That's kind of the general framework of a lot of people that are against taking away Latin Mass. I love Latin Mass. I think it's beautiful for a number of reasons. One, Jesus likely spoke Latin. In fact, he almost certainly spoke Latin. And
Aramaic.
He spoke, most likely he was actually trilingual. Just FYI.
He actually can speak any language that he wants, but, but I know that when I was in Holy Land, they said Aramaic.
Yes, Aramaic was the language of the land, but a lot of the times these people from that region also spoke Greek because that was kind of the language of law at the time, but then they also spoke Latin because that was the language of law or something at the same time too. A lot of people were trilingual though, because when he went and spoke with Pontius Pilate, you can almost guarantee that Pontius Pilate spoke Latin, and then Greek, everyone kind of spoke a little Greek because I don't know. But anyway, yes, he spoke primarily Aramaic. But there's something nice about speaking the language that the church has been saying Mass for over 1,000 years, Latin. And then before Vatican II, virtually every Mass around the world spoke Latin, and that was nice, because if you spoke Latin in America and you kind of knew the Mass, let alone if you really knew the Mass in Latin, then you go to Germany, and then, oh, wow, universal church. The Mass is the exact same also in Latin. Then you go to Indonesia, also in Latin. And then you change it to the language of whatever country it's in. That's nice for those people, but it kind of loses that universal feel to it. But whatever, I guess. But I think the biggest thing about the Latin Mass is, for some reason, there's a ton of reverence around it. There's a whole lot more genuflecting, whole lot more let's all face in this direction towards the Eucharist. And I think that's what's most beautiful to me, that I fear being taken away in losing the Latin Mass, is that reverence. Because now I see kids running around and it hurts me. Oh, Sister Teresa Paul, it hurts me to see kids run around and not genuflect and then not receive the Eucharist on the tongue and then not, and then chomp the Eucharist and not it's
that's
rough
part.
for me.
I think that's part of education. I think it's nothing to do with. I don't think it's something to do with the Latin. It's something to do with the education part of it. And back to the language, actually, I remember I watched that interview also, and I remember he was mentioning something about studying. He was Jewish, right? He was Jewish, and he was studying the what did they call it?
The Torah.
The Torah, and he was studying it phonetically, because he was going to his what is
Bar
it?
mitzvah?
Yeah, for his grandmother. Remember that story?
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand it. He was just studying it because he needs to pass this. Well, it's basically it. He doesn't understand that part. Well, how come he can't understand? The same thing. He doesn't understand Latin. It's the same. He was in the same place, but at that moment, God is not carrying him into the Jewish religion, but God is carrying him in the Mass, the Latin Mass. I don't think it's the language. I think it's God. It's like God is working in you or not.
That's
it's
true,
like,
yeah.
that's the main core of it. And how open are you in your heart? Because when you're not open, however much that you're exposed to the monstrand with the Lord is there, you're not going to accept the grace, then God is not going to force you into the face and force you to accept Him, right? He's very graceful. He's very gentle, and you accept the grace that He's giving. But it's up to you whether you're going to close your umbrella or you're going to put your umbrella up and against His grace. Like His grace is almost kind of like the sun's shining on you. And if you want to open your umbrella, you're not going to get it. If you close your umbrella and accept it, you will accept it.
And I think, though, that people, priests namely, and educators of all sorts, are responsible for helping you to see the beauty of God, thus allowing you to accept
and
the
mom
grace.
and dad.
And, oh, you betcha. Oh, we don't disagree there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, mom and dad, step one, stay together.
Exactly.
And be Catholic.
Step one, stay together and, really be parents. Be parents to your kids, It's like I just felt sometimes it's like people are having kids. They don't know how to handle it because, children doesn't come with instruction. But you take on have children, then you're responsible. You are going to be responsible of another life. That's a huge responsibility.
Huge. And more importantly, you're going to be largely responsible for another soul and the development of that person and their soul.
Exactly.
So it comes down to educators, I think. I agree. And I hope that churches will give proper reverence to the Eucharist and to the Mass and really be serious about it. That means genuflecting. Receive this on the tongue. Don't be grabbing Jesus like with your dirty hands and non-consecrated hands. And I think that's all important. And I think parenting is going to be massively important. And all around proper education and proper reverence and proper talking about who God is and Jesus is and what Catholicism is and what the Mass is and the Eucharist, that it truly is the body and blood, soul, divinity of God, Christ. That alone, because the majority of Catholics don't even believe that it's truly God. If we can just fix that problem by education, I think a lot of problems will be fixed.
Yeah, even sadly, there's a lot of Catholic that doesn't even understand that yet. So we have to keep teaching them, talk about it even more.
Yeah. Get more Catholics like you on the podcasts.
Yeah, that's your job.
That's my job. Yeah, that is my job. You're absolutely right. Okay, Sister Teresa Paul, we've got we've talked a lot. About an hour and a half now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. You've come a long way from being born in Indonesia, coming to Texas, going to California, getting your fashion degree, joining the Sisters of St. Francis.
Sisters of Third Order of St. Francis.
There we go. Right. It's been a lot of fun. I've laughed more than I realized I would in this conversation. Okay. Before we wrap things up, though, is there anything you'd like to say? I don't know what that might be, but...
Just love God. I think God is always there for you. And if you... sometimes His plan is beyond our own plan, And the things that we think about is very just... a smidgen of His plan. So He still always have a bigger and better plan for us. So if we love Him and surrender to His will, give Him the steering wheel, and we go for a ride and really go for a ride with Him.
Yeah. I remember Fulton Sheen, great guy in this area. We have a lot of his here in this building that I'm in. We have some letters that Fulton Sheen wrote, and a lot of his pictures, a lot of his stuff. He said something like tapestry, these amazing carpet-like art things. You weave that from the back of the image. So you just see one needle going like this and in and out, and then you pull the needle, and then you just keep doing that. And on the other side of things, when you step back, you see a marvelous picture.
Mm-hmm.
But you, living in just moment to moment, because that's just how God made us, we live moment to moment, you just see the one thread. It looks like tedious, annoying, boring work. Maybe you stab yourself here and there, but little do you know there's a great grand picture that if you just keep letting God weave, it's going to make this picture. I mean, that's pretty much how you have to live life, it seems like. Just trust God and sit back and ride the roller coaster, or let the picture keep getting weaved.
Yeah, and if you are parents or educator, start talking about religious life and priesthood too.
Right.
And promote vocation, because we need people to be in thinking about the vocation. We need priests, we need religious, so hopefully more young men and women be in his field to work on the vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
To be shepherds.
Yeah.
Right. I've heard that there's more nuns in America than priests. Is that true, or is that baloney?
It's still more than the priests, but not as much as it used to be. I forgot exactly the comparison, but it's the religious is going down. Of course, it's a little bit more because we, one congregation has, I don't know, sometimes there's hundreds of them in one congregation, and there's only one priest for two.
Right.
And especially now, there's a lot of priests that handle 2-3 parishes at the same time. Have to be there for everybody. It's hard.
Right. Well, I hope and I believe and I pray and I trust that it's just a blip right now in time.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's just a little boop, and we'll keep going back up, God willing.
Yes, God willing, and we pray.
Right. All right. Well, sister, thank you again so much for coming on to the show.
You're
And
welcome.
everyone who's watched and listened to this episode, thank you so much for watching and listening to The Paul Garcia Show. Until next Sunday, God bless and have a great week.